Hi, happy Friday. Thanks for joining me here tonight. It is Finish It Friday, which means I take out an old project that I haven't finished yet, and I work on that for an hour. We do Finish It Friday the first Friday of the new month. So that's today. So thank you guys for joining me here. My name is Alyssa Thomas from Penguin and Fish, where we make cute embroidery kits for the beginning crafter. And I am here every weeknight at 8:30 p.m. Central Time. And it's a time that we can relax and craft together. I'm here for about an hour and I work through projects from beginning to end so you can see the whole process along the way and just come hang out, ask questions, and I'll ask you questions too if I get stuck. So thanks again for joining me. We are working on the I Love Home quilt. We are working on the back of it, and it's by Jacqueline Steves. We did this several years ago now. The front is done. So if you remember, if you've been around here for a while, this is this quilt where we did embroidery and applique together on these cute little house designs. I'll show you it a little bit more when we flip around, but so that's what we've been working on, and here is the back. So the front is done. The back, I've just been using up all of the little pieces, every single kind of piece from the front, and just improv piecing them together. So the idea is that I use up all the fabric. If there's a little extra, that's fine, but I'm not introducing any new fabric for the back. I'm just sewing all the teeny little bits. We even have a little bin of bits that I've been using. We're gonna try and get big though really quick here, just so I can finish this thing up. So I'm gonna use some of the big pieces that I have left from this quilt. So let's see where we get with that. It'll still be improv piecing. We'll still have to make shapes the same size and sew other pieces to it, and we're going in with no real plan. It's gonna be fun and relaxing. I really love this process. So thanks again, guys. Let's get going. All right. So let me show you this quilt again. Since it's been a while, been a long, long while since we've worked on this. So I think some of you might remember this fella. So here's we have a fun border on it. This is all from her. She did a block of the month. This has to be at least 3 years ago now, I think. And I had a couple challenges I wanted to do for myself. I picked two fabrics that I really liked on their own, which is this fabric here and this fabric here. And I attempted to try and pick other fabrics that would bring it together. I don't know if I was really successful with that, but it was a fun experiment. Here's that other fabric. And then the other thing I really wanted to play around with was the idea of embroidery and applique together. So in her project, you could do either or, and I tried to do them both together just to practice my needle turn applique. So this is all needle turn. So that's a ton of work to do all of that. So this took some time for sure. So there's 4 different blocks. And they got a little bit more difficult as we went. So the real block size is this big. It's a huge block. So we worked on the center part, but then putting together these borders, those were all different. And like this one, for example, this has half rectangle triangles. So that is similar to half square triangles, but they're rectangles. So they're actually a little kind of goofy to make. So that was the challenge of this quilt, was making that half rectangle triangle versus a half square triangle, which is this unit here, versus a half rectangle there. So I think this is probably the most difficult block, it looks like. So that is the quilt. It is a good size lap quilt. Definitely not up to like a queen or anything. But it'd be a decent lap size quilt. And then the back, I've just been sewing pretty randomly. I mean, it's kind of garish, but I kind of like kind of like that about it. I've been sewing both big and large pieces. So like for that border, I had extra ones of these, just sewed it in. You know, even like little itty bitty bits like this, just, you know, like this is a one sliver. And we've just been sewing chunks together and then sewing smaller pieces to bigger pieces. And that's kind of where we're at. So we're not nearly as big as the the front, but we're getting there. I'm about halfway to where I need to be. So I'd like to start sewing some big chunks like this together again. But there's still opportunity for improv piecing. Like, we're going to end up with some smaller pieces that we'll keep sewing together. You know, this one was kind of goofy. There was like a curved piece that we just sewed into this. Oh, another one down here, it looks like that was kind of goofy. Not sure where we did all that. There was probably just a piece that was that size. So I'm going to just start by seeing what I got here, and let's just start sewing things together, because like I said, we need size. I want to move this thing along a little bit, this project along. It's been a while, right? So let's just open some fabric up. Let's just take these two pieces. They're on top. They're this is kind of like a crazy fall looking situation here. That's kind of fun. Oh, so these are quite different sizes. So that's great. So for improv piecing, the main idea that I'm going to be doing tonight is find two pieces of fabric, make them the same size by sewing another piece of fabric to it. So for example, this is a really long piece of fabric. So if I wanted to sew it to this piece, this isn't long enough. So I'm going to see what else we got here. Maybe we can sew a piece to it to make it a bit longer. So we could sew this piece. Let's see if we have a bigger piece. Just really get her done. Okay, now this has a crazy slash out of it, so we would have to kind of do this there. So these are both from fat quarters, it looks like. So the combo of these two, I could probably get this sewn onto it. So let's start by sewing this piece to this piece with the intention of sewing this onto it next. And we're going to actually kind of have two things going at the same time because I always want to have something on the sewing machine. So it's going to be a little brain teaser tonight of like, oh yeah, what was our intention with the first one, and working from there. So I'm going to actually just start by equaling out this edge. So it's kind of a awkward edge here, and I am not going to use a ruler at all tonight. I'm going to just cut away. I'm just folding this in half just to make it smaller. I am going to wear my gloves still because that makes me nervous. But let's just get a straighter edge, and then this piece we can use later when we sew together a bunch of small pieces. This is definitely a decent sized chunk that we can use on the back here still. We'll do some big things like this. Maybe we'll work on a big thing, and then the other piece that we work on can be a small piece like this. So let's kind of discover what that might be right away. So we know our first thing is I'm going to sew these two pieces together. They're not quite the same size, but they're close, and then we'll trim an edge. But let's assume that we're going to sew these two pieces together. But let's get a second piece going right away. So this is a smaller piece. I probably have something in here that will match. Oh, Barbara says that this quilt was before her time, but she was here for when we did that weird curved set in corner. Yeah, I think we did that on a different Finish It Friday. So you guys, these pieces are kind of close to the same size. I think we could just probably trim them so they are the same size. We'll just leave the selvage in there too. It's not really ironed, but that's okay. We'll iron as we go. Actually, we might not. We might just keep sewing things to other things and not iron at all. All right, so there we go. We'll actually probably use these scraps yet. I'm going to throw them back in my scrap bin. These are our first two little things that we're gonna work on. So I'm gonna start, let's start with this small piece. So let's put these together. I'm gonna sew these, but then I'm gonna immediately put these together and sew them as well. So I'll stay over by the machine and we'll do both of those. Okay. We're really just gonna play around, keep sewing things to other things. That is the name of the game. And like I said, it's looking pretty garish, this back, but I kind of like that about it. It's just kind of silly. I talked about this a little bit today with Jenna at the office, but I'd kind of like to do a super garish quilt sometime. I mean, and you know, that's in the eye of the beholder too, I suppose. But like something that's just like the gaudiest colors together, or just whatever I have laying around. It kind of actually like the back of this quilt that I'm doing here. And I would love to make a quilt top out of it. But then I'd love to do like, let me know if you guys have done this before, but like a bleach process or an over dyeing process, one or the other. So I've never done either, but I've seen them, like people do them. So the bleach process is just you would make the whole back of the whole front of the quilt, I think, and then I don't know, it'd be like some sort of watered down bleach or something, I would think. Somehow there's bleach involved, and you bleach the whole thing. Probably not a strong bleach, but bleach nonetheless, and it will even out all the colors. So obviously you'd be bleaching the fabric, but the bleach is going to react differently for the different fabrics. And some of it, the colors won't come out all the way. You'll still be able to see the pattern, but the whole thing will get like more pastel all at the same time, lighter all at the same time, which in theory will make all the fabrics seem like they go together a little bit more. So in the same idea, if I don't do the bleach thing, I was thinking like an over dyeing process. So like an indigo dye, for example. So make a really garish quilt top again, but then dye a color over it, like put the whole thing in a dye bath, which I've never done, but always looks like fun. And then like, so everything, like if you did it blue, all those garish colors would get like a tinge of blue. And I need a scissors. It's hiding underneath here somewhere, so I'm going to use this one. But yeah, so again, it would kind of even out all the colors. So I'd love to see if I can basically take something super garish and make it cute. So one of these days, that's another project that's sitting around. Oh, Kathy says the dye thing sounds fun. So there's no way to avoid accidents with bleach. I'll have to, I don't know, it'd be fun. Oh, Debbie from Oshkosh. I know all about Oshkosh. I grew up very close to there. All right. So, well, here's our first piece. I'm just kind of finger pressing. We could actually press it as we go. Let's get I'll get the mat out just in case we do want to just press as we go. It's a good idea. Let's press. So I'm not really worrying about which side I press to or anything like that. Let's just get it flat. All right, and this is ready to put another piece on. So I don't think, oops, I almost pulled the other one off the machine. I think all of our large pieces are probably still a little too large for this, although this is getting there. So let's play with this. So this edge of this big piece is almost as big as this, but not quite. I need a piece this big to go here before this is evening out. So again, my process here is equalize something out to the bigger piece. So this is the bigger piece in this case. Let's put another chunk on here, and I might not even have anything that big. So let's just see. I might have to sew a couple things together. So that sewn to something else might get us that size. Oh, so here's something funny. Oh, hey, this might actually be a good size already. Oh, look at that. It's absolutely perfect. So look, this chunk, oh my God, it's like we made it for this. It even has room for the seam allowance. So let's sew, this is some crazy thing that we sewed together earlier. Let's sew these pieces together, and then we'll sew this piece to that. So let's set these aside, and I'll start sewing this piece, and then we'll take this off and see where we're at with the red, like how big it is. I might have to clip it just to see how big it is, because we are using these large pieces, but I don't know, maybe not. We'll see. Okay. Let's get these two. This is a good find, this chunk. We're just sewing pieces to pieces, and we're making it bigger and bigger. That's the game tonight. All right, so I'm trimming off that large piece. We'll give that a press. All right, so I got to remember that this is for this piece. A little hard working it. Once we get this big, it's a little hard working in a small space like this. Well, I guess I'm going to do this from the back. And I'm not going to worry too much about pressing it beforehand, because we're just working real quick here, and things don't need to be perfect. Once we're all done, we'll see what we got, and if there's any weird puckers, I can always adjust that then. All right, so we got a pretty long piece going here. Let's see if it's long enough for this. We got a weird edge here, so we'll work on that. Oh, we got a crazy edge here too. We got a big diagonal cut out of this. Maybe let's start at the bottom and see how far we get. Start with some good ends. So we actually kind of have to flip it. Let's just hold on to it and see if we get all, like how much farther we have to go. This will be a nice good chunk though. Okay, we actually can go a little bit farther, but since these pieces are so weird here, I think I'm going to just sew all the way to the end, and I'm going to chop this whole thing off. And then we'll have a nice straight edge, and then we can decide what to do with these pieces. I think that's good enough. Let's do that. Quick decisions, quick fun things. Oh, Noeline says, I have done dyeing. It's definitely an outside activity. Oh, on old clothes. Oh, it gets everywhere. See, that's why I think I've never done it before. I don't really have a good place to do that. Definitely not inside for sure. I still think it would be fun. Your iron is always ready. How? Oh, yours, it auto shuts off. So mine is auto shutting off, but it's right next to me, so it actually stays warm for a while. So even when it auto shuts off, it's still warm, and then I just turn it back on really quick by clicking the button when I put it back in the dock if it feels like it's shutting off. But right now it's not auto off yet. Gosh, I almost feel, and I'm going to do it, I almost feel like I could use the glove here, just because this is so bulky that I think the glove is going to just help me grip the fabric and move the fabric along. Okay, we're switching to this green. And I'm not really worrying about having a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance or any of that. We are just basically getting these two pieces together. the fun thing is I don't even have to worry about, like, is this going to be too big? Like, am I getting it, like, is it going to be too large for the back of the quilt? Because if it is, I'll just chop the edge off, and we'll use that chopped off chunk somewhere else. So once we're done here tonight, we're just going to sew a bunch of pieces to pieces, but once we're done here tonight, I'll address where we're at, and like, I'll lay it down on the floor, like, tomorrow morning and see what's happening with it. All right, so here's that piece from before. We can press that now, and then we'll be able to sew this green piece on. There we go. So weird. All these funny pieces. Okay, so now our piece is larger, and it should be about the size that we needed to sew to here, and it looks pretty good. Let's sew it to this side so it's not the selvage. We can decide what way we want to go to. Let's go this way. It matches up a little bit better, and we'll sew this little fun selvage in here. All right, let's sew that. And then I don't have a next step for the pieces before this, so we'll have to decide on that. I don't have a next step for this one either. That's good though. I don't want to get too far ahead on the steps for these because I'm already doing two things at once, so don't want to confuse myself. And it's improv piecing. I don't need a huge plan. All right, so we'll leave that on the machine until we sew the next thing on. All right, so let's see what we got here now. I suppose we could try pressing this. It's huge, but might as well. Let's open it up from the back and press. Oh, so Sue says I turned in late. What are you working on? So it is Finish It Friday tonight, and Finish It Friday is the first Friday of a new month, and on that day, we break out a project we haven't worked on in a while and work on that instead. Trying to moving along those unfinished projects. So this is the I Love Home quilt from ages and ages ago, and I need a back for it. So I've been kind of piecing all the excess pieces of fabric that I have left over from the front of the quilt. And that's what the back of the quilt is going to be. And we're just improv piecing it all, which is basically sewing one piece to another. And if it's too short, we sew a different piece to it to equal it out. So now here's where I was saying that we got kind of these awkward pieces. So I could actually sew another piece to this to kind of equalize it out, but I think I'm going to just chop this whole thing off, and then we can use these chunks for something else. And again, I'm not even going to use a ruler. We are going to just eyeball all of this. It's good practice for just cutting. Just cutting straight. And it doesn't need to be perfect. But it's good practice to kind of cut without a ruler every once in a while, I think. All right, so there we go. This chunk can be sewn to something else later, for sure. For now, let's just set it aside. And let's decide what to do with this newly large piece here. Okay, let's just see what else we got. What's this? This is kind of a smaller piece, I think. And maybe we just set this chunk aside for now. Oh, that's kind of small. Yeah, let's just set this aside. We'll claim that as a big finished thing, and we'll just keep adding it to this what do we got here? Is this a fat quarter? And if we don't like how big these pieces are, we can chop them up later too. All right, these are the same size, sort of. You know, I suspect a lot of these are because they're fat quarters. Let's just sew it. Let's just do it. Less thinking, more sewing. Kind of boring, just these two pieces together, but that's the point. We're going to start with just these large chunks and see what we got. And it's a little, like I said, it's a little harder to see what I'm doing when I'm doing such large pieces. I actually really like improv piecing with little small pieces, but at this point with this quilt, I want to get it done. It's been a while. Like I'm starting to understand why people just have a ton of finished quilt tops and nothing else. Because I have a few quilt tops now that are just waiting around for the rest of the process, and it would be really fun to start quilting this. So I need a back, and instead of just putting a piece of fabric on, I'm making it difficult by deciding to do this improv piecing. All right, let's see what we got here. Okay, let's press this. Okay, so here's a good example, a bunch of itty-bitty pieces that we are putting together, and all of a sudden all these tiny pieces that we start out with, it's now like this large piece. So this is a good sized chunk that could definitely go on something else soon. Let's see what could fit onto here. We have a lot of this fabric yet. This was that main starter fabric. I wonder if it's big enough to sew onto here. Ooh, this is a real big piece. How are we doing? Are we close? Not quite. We got a big chunk there. What else do we got? I'm kind of almost out of my large pieces, and that's where I wanted to kind of get to. Ooh, these look a little bit smaller. Could I? Oh, here we go. Let's sew one of these chunks to the side here, and then I think we'll be big enough to sew there. Are these smaller? Oh no, this is a very large piece too. All right, so we're to our big pieces. That's nice. I might sew some of these big pieces and then just work on some small pieces until I can lay this all out on the floor. Okay. So this is a good sized chunk. I am going to just kind of measure this up, line it up, and I'm going to just cut off the bottom here. And I'm just going to use the scissors. I'm just going to eyeball straight across here. There we go. Good enough. So this I'll use later. But okay, so the next game plan for this is that I'm going to sew this chunk to the end. We could also sew it to this end, which would be kind of fun. I'm going to sew it to this end. And then later, once this piece is off, we will sew it to this piece up there, which is one of our, like this fabric and this fabric were the two fabrics that I kind of started out with, and then I was just using other stuff from my stash again. One of these days, I will get through my entire stash, and I'll be able to buy fresh new fabric with a purpose. I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen ever. Working through that stash. So I did improv piecing like this for the back of my first Splendid Sampler quilt, and I love how that turned out. But at some point it does get big, and it gets to the point where you just got to lay it down on the ground and start filling in gaps and where you need stuff, and I think we're getting to that point now, which is great because I needed to get to that point with this. All right. So this was just that white piece onto this darker piece. So let's press that. And I think actually every time I set the set my iron back into the charging station, it charges up again. Like I think it only auto turns off if it's been sitting in the cradle for a long time. Oh yes, Lisa's asked, is this the block of the month by Jacqueline Steves? It is. This is the back that I'm trying to make real big now. Ooh, we have this extra piece that we just did. This is probably big enough to go across here. Oh, it's actually, we got some leeway yet. All right, so we have a little chunk here. I think I'm just gonna sew to the end because this is a good sized piece. Then I'll just trim off that piece and we'll use that somewhere else for sure. But I'm not gonna equalize this piece out to do that. We're just gonna sew. Let's get right sides together first. And you know what? I think it's gonna be easier to sew to this side because I think these edges are lined up a bit more. So I'm gonna go right down these two edges. I think we're actually really quickly tonight making this a whole lot larger, the back of this quilt, so I'm really excited. I'll lay it out tomorrow sometime. We don't have like hardly any floor space to do this sort of stuff, but I'll try and make some tomorrow just so we can start seeing at least how much more I have to make on this. You know, this is the back for the I Love Home quilt. I think we have it basically half the size we need it now. So I'd like to see how much more I need to go with it. Maybe I can sew a few more chunks on it. I don't know. We'll see. It'll definitely be farther along, though. That's good. But I think after these next big chunks, we'll see what else is laying around here. But I'm thinking I might be out of my real big chunks and I can just start playing around with the small pieces, which I think is way more fun. And then those small pieces just get bigger and bigger, and then eventually you can sew them onto these large pieces like this. All right, let's just sew off the edge a little bit there. And now this piece from before we can snip off. Always having something on the machine. That's the game plan again. I'm really getting into that fold, so it ends up being nice and flat at this point, the seam. It's so gaudy, but like I said, I like it. Such bizarre fabrics together. All right, so we got a good size chunk happening here. Oh yeah, that's right. We already have a plan for this, and it was to sew it to this very large piece of fabric. Oh, now it's a little bit too big, isn't it? Wonder how wide it is this way. Oh, much wider. So let's sew it on to starting on this side, and then we'll trim off some of this green that's left over. Let's do that. And there's a lot of selvage on here, but I can see that from the top. So we'll try and line it up post the fuzz from the selvage. Oh man, I like sewing all the teeny tiny pieces better. than when a quilt and stuff gets this size. I mean, it's nice because, you know, you're almost done at this point when you're sewing large pieces like this, or just like large blocks, but man, I don't know. It gets so awkward having all this fabric everywhere. Gotta get it up on the table over here. This is such a fast way, though. I feel like this is just getting huge so quickly. I mean, you know, it actually is only fast when we're sewing these big pieces together. Once we get to these itty-bitty pieces, it'll be like we're sewing forever until we have some large chunks, but it's fun to do. It's relaxing. It's surprisingly super duper 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 relaxing, this process. There's no rules, you're just sewing things together, and if something's too long or short, you just cut it off. Like, we'll trim off all this green here. All right. What did we even have on the top here? Oh yeah, the white and brown piece that we sewed this guy to. So let's just kind of open it up and try and press it like this. And I don't really mind if there's some larger chunks on the back because, you know, it kind of shows what the original fabric looked like a little bit before we chopped it all up for the blocks. I'm just kind of pulling on the fabric a little bit so I don't get like a weird fold when I'm pressing. So I'm really opening up that seam on the other side. I think I gotta go one more up here, and we can actually cut this little chunk off. And let's just use the scissors for that. Let's just even this out. That looks good enough. All right, we got this nice chunk for later. It's got a weird fold, so let's just, since I have the iron going, let's just do that. All right, I might switch to the small pieces yet. Soon. We got all these nice smaller chunks, but let's see where we're at with this. Okay, we have 3 pieces sewn together. Ooh, I might have just dropped some on the floor. Nope, we're good. Okay, and what else do we got hanging out over here? Oh yeah, remember we did this thing at the beginning. Let's see if this measures this to this in some fashion. Then we'd have like all our like really big pieces together. Let's see. Ooh, it's much bigger that way. What about this way? It's still we got a ways on this. So I don't think we'll sew those two together quite yet. What about this? We had this weird chunk from before. So we could sew this to this and then, I don't know, cut it off and, I don't know, trim this off, and maybe we work on a triangular piece that could fit there. That'd be an option. I think, why not? Let's do that. I'm actually going to go in, we'll sew it this direction. Sewing pieces to pieces, that's the way I'm thinking right now. Ugh, I'm getting that glove on again. It helps move the fabric. So, Luann, the ultimate size of this is, gosh, it's a lap quilt size. So it's not like a full queen or anything. Oh, and I don't think it's like a full size either. I think it's a good size lap quilt though. It's not small for a lap quilt. I don't remember quite what it was for this. But like I said, if this just keeps getting bigger and bigger, which is fine, I will lay it down with the front of the quilt, and if it's too big, I will chop off what's too big, and we will come back and use that in a different part of the quilt. I'm having a hard time keeping these edges together. Okay, let's remember what was on the other side of this. Okay, we have our very large piece of this fabric attached to this guy here. So let's press this, and I believe we had a little green left. Yeah, okay, then we can trim off this green. And then I think, well, actually, maybe this is a really long piece. This might fit on our other really long piece. So let's see where we're at. So let's press it first. Yep, Sue's asking, is all this fabric the same I used in the top of the quilt? Yep, the only thing I'm saving yet is a bag that has been sitting around that says binding on it. So we must have gotten measurements beforehand for the binding. So the binding will be this color here. So that's being saved. And I saved all the scraps, and we've actually used a ton of the scraps up in the back of this quilt already with some of these like smaller little areas. So I've been saving all of the fabrics from it here as well. And now I'm just, to move things along, since we've been working on this project forever and ever, I'm like, it's time to sew these big pieces together. So that's what we're kind of doing tonight, although I do think I'll be able to sew some of the smaller chunks too. All right, I'm going to just eyeball cut this edge off here. We'll use this little piece later too, probably. All right, let's just see if this super long piece can attach to our other really long piece that we got sitting up here. Let's see where they end up. I think this is the long way, yeah. So I'm just kind of starting it on one edge, and since my space is so small, I can't lay this out on the floor or anything right now. Ooh, wow, this is much, much longer. Holy cow. So we have a huge chunk here. We could actually just sew them together and then cut off this chunk and use it somewhere else. But let's see, what about the other direction? And if not, maybe we'll just switch to small chunks for now. I think that might actually be more fun. Ooh, unless it's so close. It's not quite. I think for some reason, I think we might have measured this already last time. All right, let's put these both big, super big chunks aside. I'm going to call those done until I can see what it looks like later. So we still have this one on the machine. Let's start getting some of these other pieces together. Let's play with, I'm going to just dump these all out. We're going to make a mess here. So the fun thing with working with these real small pieces is that you can just find two pieces like this, like literal garbage, right? And be like, ooh, those are the same size. Let's sew those together, and then we can just do it. So I love this little teeny baby piecing. So we're going to switch to doing some of this small piecing for a little bit tonight, I think. Because it's fun just to see these scraps grow and grow. All right, let's see what's happening with this big piece though yet. We'll finish up this guy and get him out of the way. What did we just sew? We sewed this piece. Ooh. Excuse me, man. Sorry about that. Fuzzles are getting to me now. Oh, this was that super weird piece. I think maybe let's trim this so it's square before we move on, because we could use some of these for our smaller pieces that we're doing now. Iron. Oh, Sue says, I can't wait to see how all these patches of fabric look when finished. I'll show you where I'm at with it again. Ugh, my seam allowances are going to go in different directions here. Oh well. But I'll show you when I'm done pressing this and trimming it. I'll show you one of these smaller, or one of the back that I have so far with the smaller pieces in it. And it's so fun to see it all come together. All right, I'm going to trim that off now. Trim off that little triangle. So we have this super awkward piece here that we kind of need to balance out. So we'll get there. But in the meantime, I think let's trim this red piece. I'm just going to eyeball it. And then this red piece we could use in some of these smaller pieces. There we go. So we're kind of evened out now into a square, except for whatever's happening there. All right, I'm going to set that aside. And yeah, that looks fine. We'll deal with that once I can see what it looks like with the rest. But so here's the original back that I did before tonight. But here you can see some of the like smaller moments in here where we took itty bitty, like that's my size of my fingernail, and we just kind of started sewing them together. But eventually they got big enough to sew larger chunks too, and then it ends up being in the quilt here. So there are all these little smaller moments of just like silly little areas that started out as small little bits, and you know, here's another one, started small, but it got big enough to put somewhere else. So that's kind of what we are doing here. So we got a pile of big pieces now. That'll be great. That'll help me lay those on the ground and see if I'm even close to being big enough for the front of the quilt. That's important. We'll see where we're at there. But for now, let's sew together more of these small little pieces. So I'm just grabbing, okay, this is kind of a cool piece. It's already part of another piece. I'm just going to lay out some things until I see something that's about the same size. Okay, these look close enough. I'm going to sew those two pieces together. We'll do something with that later, I guess. Oh, that's a good idea. I will definitely tomorrow when I take some photos, because it'll be sunny out to take photos, I'll take some photos and post them in the Penguin and Fish Crafters group, so you can see the sizes, like where we're getting at with this. So this is that little tiny piece that I put on earlier, or that we sewed just a hair earlier. Let's see, what else can we sew onto it? So this is a little piece that doesn't look like it's been pressed. Let's just press this itty bitty tiny piece open. Okay, so now this just jumped out at me. as being about the same size as this. So I think, ooh, maybe this way. Oh yeah, it's even, well, yeah, I think it's even better this way. So let's put those two together. See, it'll gradually get bigger. And they don't have to be perfect. They're just close, and that's fine. All right, let's press this guy. All right, so now this is looking almost like it could go onto here really soon. We just need a piece for there. This is maybe a hair short because it's got all these fuzzles on. You know what? I'm going to just trim those off. I think those are going to mess me up. We'll toss that piece. But this is about the same size as this, so we could sew this guy on, and then we just need one more piece, and then it can be sewn onto this. So we'll have like a good chunk going here. I like that. Oh, I could warp my cutting mat. Yeah, I shouldn't really be pressing on my, I shouldn't have my, uh, wool mat on my cutting board. And actually, we haven't been using the cutting board at all, so I'm gonna move that. That was a good catch. Because now I'm just kind of using the scissors. Let's get that out of the way. All right. This guy. We just sew this itty bitty. Ooh, let's press it this way. All right, well, that piece is getting a hair bigger. What else do we got? Here's a chunk. That's maybe a little too big. It's not too big for that, though. Let's sew it onto here. This is what I love. I love sewing all these tiniest pieces together to make them bigger. This is what I like. Because like the true garbage scraps all of a sudden turning into useful pieces. That's pretty fun. All right, are we big enough now? Oh, not yet. Oh yeah, we were gonna, oh wait, was this gonna go on? With this on, I think we're big enough. All right, let's do that. Could sew it over here. That's kind of cute. It's like a little moment there. Let's see. I think we'll go like this. All right, I'm gonna sew that. That was a long decision. That was too long for a decision with this improv piecing. Little tiny piece. Little sliver of a piece. Alright, this should be big enough to sew to something else. Let's see, what else do we got going on in here? Ooh, this is, something's happening here. Ooh, look at all that. Ooh, how about like that? That's kind of cool. Alright, I like it. Let's press this though first. I don't know what's happening here. Some weird piece sewn onto another weird piece. This doesn't look very pressed either. We're gonna have to get a little triangle attached to this one. Looks like we do have some other triangles in here though, so we'll get one of those going right away. I'll get this guy out for him. That's fun. All right. Let's do those. Yeah, so this is the fun stuff versus those big giant pieces. I love how quick you can do these, make these nothing pieces into larger pieces. But we'll get these into the quilt. Once we lay it all on the ground, I can kind of decide where some of these other chunks can lay, and then we can cut those big pieces, like slice some of the big pieces so that we can fit these in, and then those slices can go somewhere else. There we go. Now we got a piece that's big enough to finally sew to this piece. So let's do that. Took a little while, right? It took a long while actually to get it large enough, but eventually we got large enough to get them together. And I think this machine just loves all the thickness of this fabric, I think. We'll definitely have to do the oiling and changing the needle, I think, after tonight. All right, let's press this and then let's add that triangle to it. Okay, so Sue says, I love the eclectic mix with the mixed and matched sizes of fabric. Okay, eclectic mix. That's how I'm going to describe the back of this quilt instead of gaudy, which is how I have been describing it. So I like eclectic. Yep, it's just all this bizarre mix of fabrics for sure. So the front, I like how the front of this quilt is definitely more organized and like pretty and stuff. And then this back is just going to be kind of all over the place, which is, I like that contrast a little bit. Ooh, yeah, this is that piece that we sewed all those littler pieces to the bigger piece, looking kind of fun. Like from far away, it just looks kind of modern, I think. All these like little chunks sewn together. I mean, all the way to like, look how small those are. I don't know. I think it's looking pretty fun. And now we got a pretty big chunk. So what can we sew onto this? I mean, we got this kind of thing happening. Why don't we sew this whole thing on? We could do that. This one's got a pretty bizarre crease. Let's just press this one quickly. Let's just kind of equalize this piece out. And like little edges like this, we can equalize those out right now. Just make it a little more square. And that's, I think we're past the point of sewing that into anything else. All right, let's sew these two together. I'm gonna just equalize this side off as well. This is a good chunk to sew to some of these other bits. It's getting bigger. Bigger and bigger. The fun thing too is that, we're working on two separate pieces right now, and eventually, who knows, they might go together, they might not. Their future is is unknown right now. Ooh, that's a funny chunk going on there. I might just try and sew something across this whole piece and try and then just like trim the rest of this out. Actually, let's just do that now. I'm gonna just trim it. I know we're a little crooked here, but I'm gonna try and fix that. This will get rid of that selvage too, which is kind of annoying me. There. What can we put to that? Let's try and get this thing going with it. What can we put there? Is there anything big enough to attach to this? Oh, this looks like about the same size. Why don't we connect these two and see where we can go from there? Maybe this will go somewhere else, but right now there are two pieces with a side that's similar. That means they're going together. Yeah, isn't the River City creative saying the machine is so quiet? It is massively, massively quieter than it was. So, I mean, ugh. It was just yelling at me before, I suppose. I just thought that was the sound of it, but it is so much nicer and happier. This is awfully close to here. Oh, look at that! Ha 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 ha. I wasn't expecting that. Let's get these together. Nice. That worked out. So it's getting a little late here, but I think I'm going to go a little longer because this is fun. You know, it's hard to quit. Oh, sorry. It's hard to quit when you're working on more than one thing at once because you press this and then you want to get something onto it, but then you have this thing here ready and you want to get something onto that, and just want to keep going. What else do we got in here? Look at these long little bits. We could sew one of those on. Some long, goofy selvages. Why not? There's going to be just like a sliver of color from this piece because it's so skinny. All right. Where'd this guy come from? Oh, it's cool. You know, this piece, I think, is looking about the size of this. Not quite. I think I'm going to just sew one more long strip onto this, and then I think we're going to try and get another piece onto here just to make it a little longer, and then let's sew the whole thing together, and we will call it a night. We will have put together a pile of stuff here. Here's another little skinny dude. Let's put that right up here. Uh-oh. That didn't sound right. Oh, it did that weird thing where sometimes the thread jumps up too high and gets caught on the other side of the needle. All right, we gotta take it off. Ugh, I gotta cut this whole thing off, I think. Boo! I think I just have to rethread a little bit here. Sometimes it gets too excited and jumps up and makes itself knot around the needle. Maybe that's a sign that I gotta change the needle. Alright, come on, guy. There we go. Suppose we can cut this other piece off. All right. So I think, wait, we had to sew one more thing onto this to make it big enough, didn't we? Totally, Jocelyn. She's saying once you get started, it's so hard to stop. Yep, so I'm making a stopping decision. The stopping decision is once I get this smaller piece to the bigger piece, which means I have to, let's see, how much do I need about? Oh, really hardly anything. I just need like a sliver of something here. Okay, we can do that. Oop, not big enough. My selection's getting a lot smaller here. I want a little fatter piece. I tried this already, it's too short. How about like this? I think that's enough. Let's sew it onto this side here. And if this is too big, we'll trim this part off later. All right, last bit of sewing. Well, we got to sew these two pieces together, but I'm going to take this off the machine right away. Which means I got to get my actual leader involved. Haven't had to do that all night. All right, let's get both of these off. Still all these little scraps. I'll get more scraps actually once I start cutting those big pieces apart. But man, we did a good job, I think, I don't think I threw any of these away, but yeah, I don't think I threw any of this away. So this is it. We did a good job at using them up. Happy with that. I also like the idea of using up a fabric in a quilt, because then that fabric was like meant for that quilt and it won't be anywhere else. It's just in that quilt. I think that's kind of a neat concept as well. All right, let's press. Oh, nope, I didn't press this yet. That's right, it's just that one little piece up here. There, excellent. So you look at this little sliver in there. That's going to be fun, just because it's right on the selvage there. All right, where should we put it? Ooh, it's the right length now. So if we put it on this side, we'll have like all these little slivers next to each other, and that might be kind of cool. If we put it over here, oh, see, it's kind of not quite the same size here. So maybe we should just put it on the longer side where it kind of matches up a little bit better. Actually, let's just equalize some of this stuff out. Like here, we can trim it. And obviously it's not square because this side ended up being longer than the other side, but that's fine. Eventually we'll get a piece that'll go straight across, and that will connect it all. It doesn't have to be square. All right, I kind of like these weird stripes right next to each other, so I think we're going to go like this. And then I do have a little excess down there that we'll trim off. All right, this will be the last seam for the night. I do want to still take it off and press it, see what it looks like. So I'll need another leader. Ooh, I'm getting awfully close to the edge here. Get up there. It's because I have all this bulk on this side that wants to push it over. All right, I think that's good enough. Let's get a leader from here. I'm gonna have to replenish this stash again soon here. We'll be working on the Splendid Sampler 2 next week. I am trying to plow through those blocks as well. We'll need a marathon on both of these quilts, I think. This quilt, we have the Granny Square quilt, we have the Triangle Tango quilt to finish, and the Splendid Sampler 2. There are all sorts of quilts that we need to finish. So this one actually, I got a little close to the edge, so I'm going to press it how it kind of should have been sewn, and it'll just kind of have this weird fold there. I could sew it together. It's kind of like a little pleat almost, but I think once we sew other things to it, it's not going to matter. But I like the look of it. Look at these three little slivers. It's like kind of like candy or taffy a little bit. A lot going on down in this corner. It doesn't want to stay flat. But look at this, you guys. This was scraps. This was this. And other little cuts from what we did earlier. And I mean, this is a decent sized piece. This has got to be like, 8 inches or like 7 inches by 9 inches or so going on here. This could definitely easily stick onto a larger piece now. I mean, if this was all squared up, we're getting to larger chunks here now, So that's kind of awesome. Itty bitties to bigger. That is what I love about the improv piecing here. So, all right, you guys, I think that's pretty good for the night. All right, so thanks again. Here is what it looks like. So there we go. We can see all those little lines in there. I think that turned out really, really fun. So improv piecing. I will lay this out tomorrow and take some photos. We did do all those large pieces, so I would think that would get us closer to being done with this back. I might just even take some time to sew a little more pieces together. We'll see how it goes. I'm really happy though. It was nice working on this again. It's been a long time. But anytime I do these Finish It Fridays, just that 1 hour working on it, I do feel like it recharges the project, and they seem to get done then, these projects with these Finish It Fridays. So that's awesome. So thanks again, guys. Have a fabulous weekend. Get your embroidery stuff all set for the embroidery of the month. We'll be stitching that not next week, but the week after. So we've been sending out the bundles right away, so there's still time to get that in the mail, pending the post office works this week. But then we'll be stitching up that bat and pumpkin. So that'll be fun. And then next week is the Splendid Sampler. So thanks again, guys. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Good night.